So the plan for today is we are going to be filling out an organizer that's going to help you with the pre-writing for task 3. But before we do that, I just want to read through what you are being asked to do for your final task for this unit. So, in my opinion, this is probably the most fun task because it's kind of like a mix between creative writing. You guys get to be a little creative with your writing choices, and then also blending that with what you've learned from the forensic anthropology unit so far. Your task says, a man was taking his dog for a walk. The dog broke free from the owner, and when the owner caught up with it, he discovered the dog had dug up a bone. Upon further examination, the dog's owner suspected his dog had discovered the remains of a human body. He called the police to report his findings. Write an informative, explanatory essay, not a narrative, in which you explain the stages the investigative team should take and the people they will consult. In your text, be sure to explain in at least 3 steps the investigation team will take and write the reasons for these steps. In other words, you're going to explain why they will take these steps and why they take them in this order. You're also going to explain who will be consulted and write the reasons for consulting these people. Okay, so if this is our task, you get to be the person who's taking the dog for the walk. Okay, I've had some kids in the past ask, Miss Brewer, can it be I'm taking my cat for a walk? Sure. Okay, if you want to change it to a different animal, that's fine. Okay, if you want to give your dog a name, that's fine. Okay, but you are pretending like you are the person who was taking your pet for a walk when the pet discovered some bones, and then you have to explain what steps the forensic team will take to figure out what happened to that person. So how many steps do you need? 3, okay? So you're going to explain those three steps, why they're taking those steps. Explain who will be consulted. Consulted means like who are you going to call in to help you with the situation, and then write the reasons for consulting these people. The next section says you have to use textual evidence from at least 2 of the 4 texts. The texts that you should use are the ones we've read previously. They include what is forensic anthropology, dead men talking, identifying the victim, and giving faces to the lost. And again, I have a folder in this week's folder that says forensic anthropology texts, that all of those 4 texts are in there so you don't have to go looking for them. Your informative explanatory essay should be 1 page in length and should be written for an audience that is knowledgeable about forensic anthropology. Be sure to use words and phrases and transitions that clarify relationships among steps and ideas to include information and vocab that a forensic anthropology would use in an explanation. So for instance, if you want to pretend like this skeleton was, an adult, you might say, I know that the skeleton or the forensic anthropologist knew the skeleton was an adult because their bones had ossified. Do you guys remember what ossified means? When they grow and they join together as they get older. Okay, so you're going to want to think of what kind of terms you can use that you have learned in this unit. So you'll be using words and phrases that clarify relationships among steps and ideas and include information and vocabulary that a forensic anthropology would use in an explanation. Your informative explanatory essay should follow the conventions of standard English, including capitalization, punctuation, and spelling. So I want you to keep this up on your computers, and I'm going to hand out your outlines. If you're working from home, your outlines are also in an assignment in this week's folder. Let's start with the part 1 section, introduce your topic. What's your topic going to be? What's the setting? What's going on?
The dog found one.
You are walking your dog or your cat or your hamster, whatever you want to put, okay? And your pet finds a bone and you think it belongs to a body. So I want you to take this section and I want you to think of how you want to start your task 3 assessment. So you could say, one day I took my dog's Skulls out for a walk, and when we passed a bush, he started going crazy. And when I looked, I discovered that he had found a bone, okay? You decide if you want to name your dog. You decide if you even want it to be a dog, okay? But the basic scenario here is the same for all of you. You are out walking your pet finds a bone, and then you have to figure out what to do next. So So the first section, I just want you to write your first sentence about walking your pet and then the pet finding a bone. Go ahead and take about 45 seconds to do that.
Like say human bones?
Yep. You could say, my pet found a bone, and when I looked closer, I realized it was a femur, it was a tibia, it was a skull, it was a clavicle bone, whatever you want to say. You can get as creative with this as you want. Take about 15 more seconds.
I'm not going to share these, right?
Nope, you don't have to share them. Because you all probably have something slightly different.
Okay,
Yes, go ahead.
it's kind of dumb.
Do you want to share yours?
No, I'm not sharing.
Oh, you're asking a question? There's no dumb questions. Go ahead.
No, it's like a really dumb question.
If there's no dumb questions, go ahead.
Until you hear this one.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I found this video where this guy was running with his two parrots. Technically, could you put like parrots?
If you want to walk your ferrets, that's fine.
No, parrots.
Oh, parrots? Sure.
That's not what I'm doing.
Sure.
Would it still be considered walking then if they
I mean, technically, they'd be like
Yeah, they
riding
were
on
flying
your
in the
shoulders
air.
or something. Or
Down
flying.
the
Okay. Okay, take 5 more seconds and we're going to go on to part 2.
would you consider it still walking with parents?
Probably not.
You're walking yourself then.
Yes, we're
You're
already.
flying your
All right, let's go on to part 2 in 3, 2, and 1. Part 2 asks you to explain at least 3 steps you will take to identify the body and to write reasons for these steps. Hint, look back at the first article giving faces to the lost, for the ways forensic anthropologists do facial reconstruction, and create profiles for the decedent, and the second article identifying the victim. Let's just think out loud here. Let's say that the forensic anthropologist gets to the scene and there are bones that have been discovered. What do you think the first thing that forensic anthropologist needs to do will be? What do you think? Right, they have to secure the area and they have to collect the bones, okay? So I would say step 1, they want to make sure they have all of the bones. Logically, where would they probably take those bones? To a lab, okay? But for right now, for step 1, let's just say that they are collecting the bones and they are making sure that they have all of the evidence. I want you to list 2 reasons why this is an important step. Just take a second by yourself. What are some of the reasons why this would be an important step? And you're going to write that where it says reasons. Why will you take this step? Why is this the first thing you're doing? Okay, why would a forensic anthropologist need to do this? Why would they need to secure the area and collect the bones? What do you think, Darius?
So they can have all the bones to make sure if the ones use their body, they can like try to identify it.
Right, so they want to make sure that it was a human body. Any other reasons why they might want to make sure they have all the bones in that area?
Because I guess like if they don't, then they're not gonna get like all the details that they would need to like find the person or figure out who it was.
Okay. I want you guys to think back to one of the first videos that we watched about the clown killer, John Wayne Gacy. When they were looking underneath his house, did they just find one skeleton? No, they found several, okay? So another reason they might want to do this is to make sure that they know how many skeletons they're dealing with. If they find 2 skulls, then they know that there was probably more than one victim. So for the reasons you guys said, I agree. They want to make sure that they have all of the information that they need. They want to make sure they have those critical bones that will help them identify the age or the gender of the victim. Okay? And then also just to make sure that they're only dealing with one victim. All right, what would your step 2 be? After you have all of the evidence from the crime scene, what would you do next? What do you think?
I expected to know the body to make sure that like a really good.
Okay, so you would probably end up taking those bones back where? To a lab. You'd want to make sure that you have all the bones, and then what would you do after that? Study them. Okay, perfect. So I would put that down for step 2. Take them to a lab, try to put the skeleton together, and then they'd want to study them. Okay, so why would this be an important step? What are they going to figure out when they study these bones? What kind of things can they determine? What do you think, Sarita?
The age.
Yeah, they can figure out the age of this person who was killed. What else can they figure out? Someone other than Sarita. Darius?
They can figure out what race they were.
The race? Yeah, what else, Simon?
Maybe how they died.
Maybe how they died. Okay, is gender an important thing to figure out? I would say so. So for step 2, I would say the reasons why they're doing that, they want to figure out the age, the gender, the race if they can, start looking for clues on how that person died. You are going to have to go back and look for specific evidence from those texts. Remember, you have to have 2 texts that you use in this. Okay?
Each one?
No, for the whole thing. Okay, for the whole thing. So after you have looked at all of those things, if you figure out the age, the gender, the race, all of that kind of stuff, what will your next step be? What do you think, Darius?
Start identifying the person like with a clay sculpture and skull scales.
Okay, so this is the part where you would want to start trying to identify the victim. Okay, you can do that by checking hospital records, dental records. You guys remember all of those conversations that we had? So we could maybe start trying to match the decedent to any of the missing people that are in the database. That would be a good first step. You could, if you wanted to, consult a forensic sculptor. If you didn't have any matches, then they could maybe work on trying to sculpt the person's face. You're the person who gets to determine what happens in your story. So you get to figure out if you want to say that, your victim was a 23-year-old male who had a crack in his tibia bone that indicated that it had been broken at one point, and you combed through hospital records and found a match and you identified them that way. Or you can say that there were no, things that stuck out about the skeleton, so you decided to consult a forensic sculptor and have them build a face. You get to decide how you want to do that, okay? Take about 30 more seconds on step 3. Let's talk about some transition words you could use. What are some transition words? Since you're going in steps, what would be some logical transition words to use?
Next.
First. Next.
Next.
Then. After that.
What?
Okay? You can use any of those transition words if those would help. First, then, next, after that, finally, in conclusion. Any of those would be fine. When you're telling your 3 steps, it's really important to make sure that you have those things labeled so that your reader can follow the steps. All right, let's go on to part 3. So in this section, we're going to explain who you will consult and why you will consult them. So who are some of the famous people that we have learned about that we could consult? Bill Bass would be one, okay? So for source one, we can put down Bill Bass. And what texts talk about Bill Bass? Dead Men Talking. What would be some reasons why you would consult this person? What's the obvious one? He's a super famous forensic anthropologist. He's a legend in the forensic anthropology world. The greatest of all time, if you will. So he's the expert. He would be able to look at the bones and help you figure out how old they were, if there was something wrong, all that good stuff. Who would be another person that we could consult? What do you think, Kyle? David Cohn? Yep, David Cohn. He's the author of Dead Men Talking. I'm going to throw up a couple more for you. Do you guys remember our friend Muvwano? Okay. Was there a doctor who helped reconstruct her face?
That's David what?
David Cohn, he was the author of Dead Men Talking. Muvwano, I'm just going to put this one here as well. Dr. Craig is the person who sculpted Muvwano's face. You could use that person as a source as well.
Can you put that on source 3?
You can if you want to use that one. Okay. I'm going to throw up just one more. You could also talk about Angela Leibel because she is the author of Giving Faces to the Lost and Identifying the Victim.
She's
She wrote that whole book of forensic anthropology. So she is someone that I also would consider an expert. So you choose. I think you only have to have. Do you have 2 or 3 sources? 3. Okay. So you choose. If you're going to talk about sculpting someone's face, you probably want to use Dr. Craig. Pretend like you're talking to Dr. Craig. If you want to talk about actual forensic anthropology, you might want to mention Bill Bass. Okay. If you want to talk about identifying the victim, matching the remains to the evidence that's left behind, you could talk about Angela Libel, because she's the one who talks about that in the chapter identifying the victim. Okay.
Dr. Craig was the one that sculpted.
Muguano, yes. Okay. So you guys decide which of those 3 sources that you want to use. What we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to put all of this together. Make sure that you work on task 2 and get that done. Do not lose this paper because you will need it tomorrow, and have a great day.